Hi, I'm Kimberly from the Fat Quarter Shop, and today I'm going to show you how to make a quilt-as-you-go table runner. It's super easy and great for beginners. You're going to be using a molded jelly roll. That's going to be for the front, and one jelly roll will make 2 table runners. For the back, you need 1 5/8, and for the binding, 5/8 of a yard. We're also going to be using some batting, and I'm going to be using 2 different weights of thread. For piecing, I'm going to use 50 weight, and for quilting it, I'm going to use 28 weight. Super easy. Let's get started. I've selected the Harvest Road collection by Moda to make my table runners, and the reason I selected it is because it has 2 really distinct colorways, which makes it easy to divide. So what you're going to do is take 14 strips for 1 table runner, 14 strips for a second table runner, and then you're going to have some leftover strips that you can use for a different project, or you could put them together to do your binding. And so we're going to go ahead, and we decided to make the blue table runner today. So we've got 14 strips, and we're going to start with those. So you have your jelly roll strips, and you're going to have a center to that strip. So what I've done is I've taken 14 blue jelly roll strips, and I have the fold right in the center. And we're just gonna cut these in half. So you've got to just cut a little sliver off, just a tiny, tiny, tiny piece off, like 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, just a tiny bit. And then we're just gonna throw these away. And now we have 28 strips. So I'm gonna set my strips aside for now, and then we're gonna get our batting out. So today we're using Happy Cloud 80/20 table runner batting, and what's great about that is it's already cut. So you just unroll the package, and what I'm going to do is fold it in half across the length. So I can find the very center, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little pin there where I know exactly where the center is, and that is where we're going to start. So I'm just going to put pins there, and then I know where that is. And then this is just a scrappy table runner. So I'm gonna just kind of put some fabrics together. So I think I'll just start with the cream right in the center, and you can see that these strips are longer than the table runner, and that is okay because we're gonna trim that at the end. So on the left side of the pin, I'm going to put 1 of my strips, maybe a little bit over so it's partly in the seam. So right there, just kind of in the center. And then we'll get another color, maybe a light blue, and we'll put that on top. So we've got 2 strips right sides together. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pin just a couple of times. This doesn't have to be perfect, and your 1/4 inch seam doesn't even have to be perfect. So now we have these right sides together, and we've got this pinned. And what I'm going to do to make this easier for myself is roll my batting in so it's not in my way when I'm sewing. And I'm going to put wonder clips at the end, and as I add to my table runner, I can unroll it. So it makes it much easier to work with. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to go to the sewing machine and whip this little table runner up real quick. So I put a walking foot on my machine, and a walking foot will really hold all your layers together and go smoother. You don't have to use one. I just prefer mine. And mine actually has almost a 1/4 inch foot. So I'm just going to put the very edge of my walking foot, and I'm going to start stitching outside of the batting. And I'm just going to stitch all the way down. Doesn't have to be an exact 1/4 inch. Just keep it consistent as you go down. I'm gonna sew off the batting. So I've added my ironing board to my sewing area. That way we can really whip this table runner right up. So we can just go back and forth to the sewing machine. So I'm gonna flatten my stitches and set the seam, and you can see that your seam will go one direction. You're just going to press that direction nice and flat. And the reason that we are sewing off the end of our batting is so that when we go back to trim at the very end, we're going to trim right on the edge of the batting, and we can get the most out of our batting and make our table runner as large as possible. So it's really important to go about 1/2 inch off. So now we've got our first 2 strips down, and we're just going to keep adding. So we'll pick 2 more strips. I'll put this one here and see how that looks. And then maybe another navy. So I think I like the way that looks. And what I'm going to do is put those right sides together on the batting. And I'm just going to keep the little zigzags on the edge just lined up with each other. And I'm just going to pin a little bit. Just a couple pins. Since this doesn't have to be exact, it'll just keep it in place. So I'm going to do that side. I'll turn it around. And using those Wonder Clips is really keeping everything in place. Put this right sides together. And so as we build our table runner, you can do 2 at a time, and that's going to really get all 28 of these strips down really quick. So now we'll just move right back to our sewing machine, and we're just going to stitch the same exact way starting off of the batting. Turn it around and do the other side. And now we can go back to our ironing table. Flatten your seams a little bit. And I did not pre-wash any of my fabrics or pre-starch. I just went straight from the package of the Jelly Roll on this project. Just get it really nice and flat. Iron the other side, and you can see if you get your sewing machine and your ironing table right next to each other, you can have this done in an hour. So easy. So I just like it nice and flat, and then we're going to keep adding. So now I've used that already, so that's probably not the best choice. Let's do maybe a plaid. We haven't used a plaid. So maybe a plaid there. Maybe another light blue there. That's looking pretty good. So now I will just pin this down. And you don't really need that many pins. Turn that around. Add this. Now we're just going to go right to our sewing machine and sew these 2 stitches, these 2 seams. And again, start off with the batting. So we're just going to slide right over to our ironing table. Set your seams. So this is coming together really quick. So with one jelly roll, you can make 2 table runners. They're great housewarming gifts. Super easy if you need to put a project together really fast. So at this point, I'm kind of running out of space. So I'm gonna open my batting a little bit more, move my Wonder Clips back a little bit so I have more room to add. Do the same thing on the other side. Just unroll it as you go. And so I need to add to each side. That'll look nice. And so I'm just gonna add these, and we're just gonna keep doing this until your entire table runner is done. So just keep building until you have all of the strips all the way to the very edge. So now you have all your strips on there, and then you've got the back. And on the back, you can see that our strip went outside of our batting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna trim. First, I'm gonna just trim this side, and I'm just going to trim exactly on the batting. So I'm just going to trim straight line. So I'm just trimming right on the edge of the batting all the way down, keeping it nice and straight. I'm going to turn that around. You're just going to go straight right on your ruler. And you can see at the edge, it's kind of coming out a little bit, and that's okay. You're just gonna cut it straight with your previous cut. So now everything is straight on the edges. We're gonna turn this over, and we've got a tiny bit of batting here that we're gonna cut. Now, if your fabric goes all the way over this way, you'll cut from the back. So whichever way you have batting, we're gonna cut it on the edge, and you're gonna trim. You're going to straighten this, come down, and just make sure that it's straight so that you have a nice corner. So when you put your ruler, you can put your ruler right on the edge, and it should be a 90-degree angle. So we're going to do the same thing over here. Line up the ruler here and down here. And look at that, and it's a tiny bit off, so we're just going to cut that. So now this is our top. It's basically all the fabric is 100% even with the edge of the quilt top, and now we're going to add our backing. So we have our backing fabric. It's 1 5/8 yard. Now we've got our selvages lined up edge to edge, and I'm going to cut it in half. And what that is going to do right on this fold, that's going to give you 2 backings, one for your green and one for your blue. And I picked a color that would work with both colorways of my table runner. I'm going to go ahead and iron one of these backings and come back. So I've ironed my backing, and I'm going to just lay it with the wrong side up. I'm going to lay that down, and I will just put my table runner on top. Just leave a little bit on each side. The trick is to get it nice and flat and not puffy on the back. So I'm just going to get it nice and flat. Now if you wanted to spray base your batting, you could use a 505 spray. I personally don't like those sprays, so I would rather just kind of quilt it as I go. So I've got that, and I'm gonna pin all around. Now on the outside, I'm just gonna pin lightly because I'll probably reposition and repin that later as we go, so I can flatten it as I go. But I wanna have it just somewhat pinned. So this is our center right here. So I'm gonna have this for sure nice and flat. And I'm just, you could use safety pins if you wanted to. This will prick you, these little pins. I just don't really want to buy safety pins. Safety pins would be much easier, and you would not cut yourself. But I just like to use my pins since I don't have any safety pins. So on the outside, I'm not pinning as much, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this just like we rolled before, and pin this and pin here. And I'm going to pin the rest. And like I said, just really need it in the middle to be pinned really good. On the outside, you can reposition as you go. So I'm going to roll this side up. Now we're going to start quilting in the center. So I'm going to quilt from the center all the way out. I'm going to stitch about 1/4 inch away from every seam because I like the way that looks. You could just do 1 stitch if you wanted to, but I really like the look of it. And I'm going to put in a 28 weight on the top of my machine so that you can see my quilting. And in the bobbin, I'm going to leave a 50 weight. And on this, I'm just using Aurifil color 2000. So let's get our sewing machine and start stitching. So now we're going to go to our sewing machine, and I'm going to put the very edge of my walking foot on the seam, and we're going to stitch. I'm going to start off of the batting so that all of my starts and stops get covered once I put my binding on. I've got my stitch length at like a 3.5. I tested it before I'm starting, so you can just do a couple of tests with batting to see how it looks. Just going to remove my pins as I go. And so I really like how the 28 weight is giving me a really nice big fat stitch. It really shows up. I'm going to turn that around and do the same exact thing on the other side. Again, starting off of the actual table runner. Having a table that's nice and flat will make this go much smoother. So if you like the way that looks, you're just going to keep going. And what is easiest is to go all the way from the center all the way to one side, stop, and then go to the other side. And starting in the center will just make your table runner nice and even. You could also just stitch in the ditch right in the center, so it's up to you. So I am going to, and as I unroll, I'll just make sure it's nice and flat, and you'll just keep going. So I'm going to turn that around and then just keep going. You just go to your table, make sure it's nice and flat, and just keep going. So we went ahead and finished our stitches, and you can see that we used 28 weight on the top and 50 weight on the back. You can do whatever thread you want. You could even do less stitches. You could just do 1 stitch per row. You can do it however you want. We just kind of wanted to, since it was a simple pattern, kind of make it a little bit spiffy. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim this up. And what I'm going to do, we've already trimmed to the batting, but I want to now, since we've got the backing on it, make it really square. So I am going to put a line on one of my seams and make sure that it's looking straight, and then I'm going to cut all the way around. This is how I would square this up. I'm going to show you all sides, and that's why we stitched off the edge, because you're never going to see the start and stop of your stitches. Now to keep it straight, I'm going to keep my ruler up here so that I can see that it's still straight, and then I'll just kind of move my table runner to get it straight. But I want it to be straight and not diagonally. So I'm just going to kind of keep going, and again, straighten up here first, and then as I keep it straight, I kind of just pull the table runner. Now to do the corner, I'll show you a little trick. I'm going to pull it closer to me. To do that corner, I really want it to have a 90-degree angle. So what I'm going to do is have it lined up, and you can just fill your ruler here straight, and then here, and I'm just going to trim this edge. And that way when you put your binding on, you've got that really nice corner, and it won't be funny looking. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Line up the top, the edge, and just cut around the ruler. The corner on your ruler will really get that square for you, so you don't have to really think. And then I'm just going to keep going. Of course, by putting my Creative Grids ruler at the top. And just cutting, and this is like one of the easiest quilts you can do as a beginner. I could even see like a child doing this one. So easy. And I love that you can get 2 from 1 jelly roll. So I just keep going. So again, I'm going to get to this corner. I'm going to go ahead and turn. Put my ruler here. Kind of use my fingers to make sure that's straight. Come over. Get that straight. Just continue that straight line. And then look at your corner and look, ta-da, it's perfect. So it has all the right angles and it looks perfect. So all you need to do now, this is your front and your back. All you need to do now is put binding on. So we're gonna link to several binding videos, super easy, from our channel. Subscribe to our channel, and we also have other Quilt-as-you-go tutorials on our channel. And if you wanna see more, just comment below and let us know what you're looking for, and I'll see you next time.